Welcome to Wrasslin Raw!
All right, you're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when Raw became more and Attitude ruled. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
For once in your life, Jason, listen to reason and don't react in a physical and violent way.
Joe Giammatteo.
The word of the day today is conspiracy.
That was mentioned a few times.
Say it.
Yeah, good God. I am the one and only Jason Bartlett. We're going to examine WWE history, one episode of Raw is War at a time. But first, let me just open up the old browser here.
You've got mail.
Excellent. We had a check-in from our man across the pond, Lord Thomas, the Viscount of Grimsby. By God, good to hear from you, Thomas.
Yeah, it's been a while.
He left a review for us on the UK Apple page, and so it took a minute for it to make its way across the pond to us here. So thank you for that, Thomas. Let's see what it says here. He said, "This podcast always leaves me a moaning, a groaning, and a screaming." My God.
Couldn't ask for a better compliment than that.
Thank you, UK Tommy. Appreciate it.
Also, regular listener Chris Uncle Ahmad on YouTube, he chimed in to say that 6/15/98, which is the episode we're going to be talking about tonight, will mark Sunny's final Raw on-screen appearance, who has been a Wrasslin Raw mainstay for nearly 3 years. Crazy to think she was been around that long. Yeah, that's been the rumor for a while now, is that it's about this time that Sunny's going to be gone. And I think about her, and all I can think of is that weird era where she came in with the occupational gimmicks as one half of the Body Donnas with Chris Candido, and just the weird ass physical trainer fitness guru thing they were doing. God, it was just so weird.
Yeah. But it will be sad. She has been a pretty big mainstay, and the fact that she's getting shuffled out here because of Sable makes it even worse.
Yeah, she was stuck in a terrible gimmick to start out, and then they started to really give her a nice push, but then really pumped the brakes on her once Sable entered the picture. So looking back on it, it wasn't really that memorable of a run for her. She is a legendary diva for the Attitude Era, but nothing really that impressive as far as her work goes after watching it for the past few years.
I think that's probably one of the biggest takeaways I have, is that in my mind, it was much longer and more impactful, and she was involved in more, but really she wasn't.
No.
What are you talking about? She broke up the Smoking Guns, for God's sakes.
Right. I forgot about that.
Jeez. She was the one that the Gunn brothers desired the most and fought over. It was high drama. Get it? High drama, Sunny. Anyway, I just think it's funny that they went from Sunny, who is, shall we say, a spirited young person here in 1998, to the exact opposite, a soulless robot.
Yeah.
The only thing they have in common is they're blonde.
We all know Sunny's issues, personal issues too. Maybe those came into play, or maybe they wanted to give her more of a push and she just wasn't accepting of it. Who knows?
Yeah. All right. Well, Chris Uncle Ahmad, thank you for sending us that note on YouTube. Appreciate it. It's good to get a final date here on Sunny. I'm sure we're going to be learning more about that in the news in weeks to come, but we knew it was about this time, and what a way to go. A tag team Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
Jeez. We'll get to that here soon. So let's just shut down the old browser.
Goodbye.
All right. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on June 15th, 1998. This Raw was recorded at the Freeman Coliseum in San Antonio, Texas, and features Jim Ross, Jerry the King Lawler, and Michael Cole on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready.
All right, then. Let's get into it. We started this off reviewing the finish to last week's show, Mankind and Kane doing a number on Stone Cold. Texas might just be hell, and it's not because of what you may be thinking. It's because there's a Hell in a Cell cage hanging there in the arena, the Freeman Coliseum.
Also gets quite warm there.
Yes, yeah. That will come into play later for Vader's match.
Somehow the temperature outside is affecting his in-arena ability.
Yeah. But rather than start the evening with the tried and true method of providing great content, we started things off with Sable coming down to the ring. Last I checked, she had no business being there.
No.
Right.
None.
Yeah, we had a goodbye song last week.
Right.
For her.
She was practically dead.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. They gave her the fucking 70s Hulk music, walking away and everything.
Yeah. The Anne Murray song.
Yeah. Anne Murray's rendition of Wind Between My Legs. I will say, though, she must have gotten a makeover or something, because she looked different than before. Like, still artificial and fake, but I think they did something different with her hair. It's better than it was before. I don't know.
But she feels good to be back.
I got my wrist joint oiled so I can wave to the crowd. But then we got to the real meat of the matter. Sable introduced the person that ensured her return to the WWF, Mr. Vince McMahon. And the crowd was clearly conflicted by this. The boos weren't nearly as numerous. They were a little confused. Vince wanted to clear up any supposed conspiracy theory. Take a shot every time we say conspiracy theory in this episode. And so handed Sable a pre-written statement, which Sable read very robotically and without any kind of charisma.
There's no other way for her to do it.
Her default, if you will. Default state. The statement more or less said that Vince had nothing to do with the attack on Stone Cold Steve Austin last week, and he would be looking to assign blame to whoever the perpetrators are. Vince wrapped it up with, "Let's hear it for the return of Sable," with zero enthusiasm. But then the glass broke, and the roof lifted off the Freeman Coliseum as Stone Cold came down to assist Sable out of the ring. Austin called Vince a chicken shit, and I popped. That was great. There was a great back and forth between Vince and Austin there that the crowd was very up on. Vince was panicking while whining, "Listen to reason! Listen to reason, Austin!" Vince went on about some kind of conspiracy and suggested that the Undertaker was really behind it all. That went on until the bell tolled, and the Undertaker made his way down to the ring. It is no longer the summer of George, and Taker has put the sweatpants back in the closet by the looks of things.
Thank God.
Unfortunately, even though Taker was dressed correctly, he still talked like the American badass. There were no mention of corpses or putrefaction, and it disgusted me, that lack of that. But then the lights went out again, and this time it was the organ music, and Kane and Mankind and Paul Bearer came out. There was a lot of talk again, with the end result being a challenge for a tag team match in the Hell in a Cell cage, and it was set. The Undertaker and Austin versus Kane and Mankind in the cage later on tonight. And that's where we'll pause it here. This was a pretty girthy package. This was basically the first 20 minutes of the show, and there were a lot of moving parts here. One superstar after another coming out, to the point where it felt a little unwieldy to me. What was done and said was perfectly fine, but just felt like they were trying to cram an awful lot of star power into the first segment. Ryan, what'd you think of the way we kicked things off here?
Well, the first thing, Joe, you had to be ecstatic that the first 20 minutes we had no wrestling and it was nothing but story.
Yeah, it's immediately my highlight. I'll just go ahead and say that now.
Unfortunately, it started with Sable coming out here, but quickly we got Mr. McMahon to come out. That pre-written statement that he gave the Sable, I love the one part about him assuring us that he was going to track down whoever was involved in attacking Stone Cold. It reminded me of OJ saying when he vowed that he was going to find the real killers. And then it ends with, I'm assuming she was told she had to, Sable giving a awkward kiss to Vince on the cheek as a thanks. That was a little bit creepy. But thankfully, Stone Cold comes out, and his stuff with Vince McMahon, as usual, was pretty great. When Vince let out that line about don't react in a physical, violent way, Stone Cold asked the crowd, "Do you want to see me react in a physical and violent way?" That was just pure genius there. I enjoyed pretty much everything after Sable. Lots of conspiracy talk, but we get the Undertaker to finally come out and not in jogging pants, so that was definitely great to see. But when him and Stone Cold start talking about the conspiracy of Undertaker causing the end of last week, or was it McMahon, I did enjoy when it looked like the Undertaker has convinced Austin that he had nothing to do with it. They both look at Vince, and Vince again gives that cartoon gulp look. Like, I just love when Vince does that. It's so perfect. And then to learn that Kane and Paul Bearer come out to set up a Hell in the Cell versus Undertaker, Stone Cold, and Mankind and Kane. That is a hell of a way to keep people sticking around to the end of the show, because a lot of star power involved in a damn good style match. So it started off a little bit weak, but it built and just kept on getting better and better.
Yeah, 20 straight minutes of no wrestling to start the show. Just what I like. And Sable is back with zero explanation as to why she's back. But I guess we get it later from Vince. It almost seems like they're going with the she slept with Vince McMahon angle to get back in. Who knows where they're going with that. But Sable, she comes out in this skin-tight bodysuit, and Sable clearly spends a lot of time in the gym, so I'll give her credit for that. And she looks really good. Not too many people can pull that look off, so she looks great. And there's a sign that says, "Suffocate me, Sable," and I popped for that. And I also love seeing the little kid in the front row flipping the double bird to the camera.
Yeah, the kid was like 8.
Yes. And it didn't pan away at all. It was just focused right in on him. Do you guys remember it's going to be coming up here soon at some point probably, but they did this angle where Pat Patterson taps Sable on the ass and she freaks out and beats him up. I feel like that's going to be coming up pretty soon, so I'm looking forward to that. And good thing Sable used her looks to make money because she can't fucking read. Could you imagine? This woman wanted to be an actor. Could you imagine her doing this in front of a casting director? Like this was terrible.
Well, I have to imagine she has done it in front of a casting director.
Yeah.
If she was trying to become an actress, but I'd like to see that video.
And was immediately rejected.
Yeah.
Sable, clearly, we all know that she's way over with these crowds. So I do love these very small amounts of Sable and Stone Cold Steve Austin interactions. You're putting the biggest male superstar and the biggest female superstar together. So I kind of like that they're throwing that in there a little bit. Steve Austin was being a gentleman, helping her out of the ring and stuff. Mm-hmm. So that was pretty good to see. Vince is basically telling Austin that the Undertaker is behind all of these shenanigans. And Ryan, like you said, we get the cartoon gulp when Undertaker starts talking. And he's no longer Mr. Sweatpants, and he's basically saying that Vince is a liar. So you've got this whole conspiracy thing building that they're obsessed with tonight. Yeah, they're obsessed with it tonight. And challenging to a Hell in a Cell match on Raw, that's a big deal back then because you didn't get these gimmick matches on Raw back in those days. So if you're somebody who doesn't watch the pay-per-views, this is a pretty big deal for you to be able to see a Hell in a Cell on Monday Night Raw.
Yeah. I was pretty startled, honestly, whenever I first tuned in and saw the Hell in the Cell hanging there. Of course, commentary made sure to point it out, and I was like, wait, what? Are they doing this? And yeah, they are. So that's at the end of the night, though. We've got a lot of wrestling actually to get through here. Sorry, Joe, but
yeah,
we're cramming a lot in here. So let's go to our first match of the night. The Rock defeats Vader by pinfall in 4 minutes and 40 seconds in a King of the Ring qualifier match. Before we get into the match, though, Ryan, can we just get a quick status update on Vader, please?
Yeah, I think he's got an update for us.
Maybe Vader time's over. I'm nothing but a big piece of shit. A big fat piece.
Thanks again, Vader.
Straight from the horse's mouth, folks. Straight from the mastodon's mouth, I guess I should say. I loved it when JR asked if Vader had enough gas in the tank to derail the thoroughbred. God, such a great line. I also loved it when JR was saying that the Texas heat may be having an adverse effect on Vader. Because that's what we got to do here in Vader matches, is come up with reasons why it fucking sucks.
Even though Vader told us.
Oh, yeah, Vader will tell you, but
he's
they
admitted
can't
to
just
us
say
why.
I do have to give the Mastodon credit. He worked The Rock's reversal into a DDT really well. And I was just sitting there watching this until Mark Henry came down to attack Vader in a very big way. There was a splash there at the outside. JR asked why nobody would notice that happening, and the answer is Earl Hebner. The worst referee in the history of the business is who was officiating this one. The Rock ended up winning with a rock bottom to progress through the tournament. And speaking of, we got a new view of the bracket here. Only one match remains to round out the finals. So far, we've got Ken Shamrock versus Mark Henry, Double J versus Mark Marrow, Dan Severn versus Owen Hart, and then The Rock will be taking on the winner of Triple H versus X-Pac, which we will be getting later on tonight. And that's all I've got for this match. The Rock looks great, but he was in there with a big fat piece of shit. Ryan, what'd you think of this?
Despite Vader's description of himself, I didn't hate this match. I thought it was one of the better matches we've seen Vader in a while, and that's mostly because of The Rock. The action that The Rock did with him actually looked believable. One thing I did hate, though, was Michael Cole yet again calling Rock a blue chipper. That's fucking JR's line. Just stay away from it, you fucking pencil-necked geek. But the ending, too, it further humiliated Vader because he got splashed on the outside, but like 5 minutes later, The Rock finally comes out and just throws him back in the ring, and Vader's still in the Mortal Kombat finish him mode minutes later to take this rock bottom and then the ultimate lose. So Vader is continuing on his march along to worthlessness, but The Rock looked good here, and this was a serviceable match in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys heard this, but Michael Cole really popped me when he reminded us that Vader was out for 3 months due to an eye injury and wasn't able to hit the gym during that time. Which explains everything, really.
Yeah.
And why he's just a fat piece of shit now.
But wasn't he when he left as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even if we have, I can't remember. I have a hard time remembering, but I feel like we haven't seen The Rock in a singles match in a long time. So
No, you're right.
I did enjoy this match, even though it was Vader. I enjoyed seeing The Rock in a singles match. And this was the first time I've noticed the crowd get a little bit excited for the People's Elbow. He's been doing this for a while, but it doesn't reach what it's going to reach later with the crowds. But I noticed it here where they got a little bit excited for it, probably because it was going to be on Vader, but who knows. But props to The Rock for continuing to sell those two moves, the Rock Bottom and People's Elbow, because they're not really used as a finisher, but he's still using them and they're highlighting it on commentary, so that's good to see. And this Sergeant Slaughter removing people gimmick that they're doing, and then they come out later to interfere anyway. It's growing old for me. Like I'm already sick of this. Like Sergeant Slaughter is completely worthless as an authority figure anymore.
As if we didn't already know he was neutered. Let's just hammer that point home.
And he got his ass beat by Mr. Sweatpants last week. Like he has no authority at this point, so they need to stop doing that.
I had the exact same note on Slaughter, except later on in the other match where they do that. But yeah, it's getting pretty useless. Somebody needs to tell The Rock that you can't win on style points. With the Rock Bottom and the People's Elbow. I love how JR brings that up every time. You can't win on style points. And hopefully on his long march towards worthlessness, Vader will lose a pound or two. Next up, we went to a pre-recorded video entitled DX Droppin' Knowledge. This gave me like some weird flashback vibes, not to like an after school special, but like I could have swore there was some kind of like the more you know things that used to happen back in the 90s that this was like making fun of. Like a couple kids sitting in a classroom with a teacher giving them, dropping knowledge on them, rapping with them, you know? They were in there to strategize for their match later on tonight. Let's not forget that X-Pac and Triple H will be taking on each other here, so that's a big deal. We also got another video of Edge acting like a homeless schizophrenic in the middle of a city. This was a brief segment, so Joe, do you have anything you wanted to add on there? Not really. The DX drop-in knowledge videos, I didn't like those because I couldn't really tell what they were saying. It just wasn't, I don't know, wasn't that audible. And with Edge, like, I feel like Tommy Boy is a Tommy Boy where he's like, for the love of God, can we just see this guy? For the love of God. Yeah. I'm tired of the videos now.
The drop of knowledge, I thought it was fine. There was nothing to really complain about here. I did get a kick out of Road Dogg telling Triple H that he needs to watch out for his giant nose. And then Triple H said that he didn't have a big nose, and Road Dogg responded with, "Okay, Pinocchio." The Edge video, though, completely agree. They need to stop edging us with these videos and just fucking get it along already.
Raw. My taint is raw.
Yeah, like what the fuck are they waiting for?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Not to play my hand or anything, but they were waiting for next week.
Okay.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
You know, I try not to spoil the future too much with the research that I do for things here, but I completely agree. It's getting pretty fucking tedious.
Well, good to know next week we will not be a moaning and a groaning and a screaming.
Finally take a break and put some fucking balm,
Salve.
some balm on the taint.
Right.
All right, let's keep it going to our next match. Darren Drozdov, a.k.a. Droz, a.k.a. Puke, defeats Double J Jeff Jarrett with Tennessee Lee by pinfall in 2 minutes and 12 seconds. In the first tie-up series here, Mark Marrow and Jackie came down to join commentary. Mark accosted JR there about why Sable is back. So it felt like this was going to be a phone call match. We got some cursory video of the match in the ring, but zero discussion of it. I did, however, get an instant hard-on when Jackie slapped the wheeze out of Tennessee Lee's mouth. That was some good stuff, pal. And some more weak interference from Marrow is what gave Droz the win here. And that's it. Once again, I'm forced to look at this and say, nobody cares, kid. There was practically zero heat for anyone here. Pennsylvania Joe, what'd you think of this match?
Yeah, not much for me here. I guess it was a good win for Droz. I was afraid that he was headed on the fast track to Jobber World here the past, what was it, last week that he got a loss? And this wasn't really exciting, but I was happy to see Droz win this.
Yeah, I agree with that. I thought Droz, the fact that he was up there with Double J, this would have been a much better ring debut than with 8 Ball or Chainz or whatever the fuck DOA piece of trash he was in there with. But I did enjoy Tennessee Lee starting things off, though, berating the crowd for not caring about Tennessee soldiers at the Alamo. I thought that was some good stuff. I did not like Mark Marrow here. For the most part, I've been enjoying him for months now. I thought he's been doing a good job, but this just felt dumb. Like he's sitting here demanding an answer as to who let Sable back in. And it was made blatantly clear earlier. It was Vince McMahon. And then he responds to JR telling him that, oh, so Mr. McMahon could just do whatever he wants. Yes. He's the owner. Like, why are we going over this?
Like JR responded to him like, well, yeah.
It seemed so dumb and just didn't make any sense. But Marrow was out here to give the low blow to Double J to allow Droz to pick up his first victory. So again, Joe, with you, I like that Droz didn't have to job out here, but the whole segment with Mark Marrow just was fucking stupid.
My mind didn't even go there for Droz. All I could think of is I don't give a shit because he's been with LOD 2000 and I am not excited about Droz at all. You're right. I'm glad that he got to hit the pay window here and pick up a victory, but I just, like I said, my brain just didn't go there. I was like, oh God, more of this. Let's see. We went backstage next. There was a view of a door with a Val Venis sign on it. I'm assuming that's supposed to be his private dressing room because I can't imagine the kind of hijinks that he would get into if he were allowed to shower in the locker room with the rest of the boys. And I was vindicated in that because there was the sound of a moaning and a groaning and a screaming. After that, we got another brief view of DX strategy planning, dropping knowledge. So once again, this is just a brief segment, and that's going to be the pattern throughout the rest of the night. Ryan, what'd you have on it here?
There isn't a bunch to add here. We just had the quick teaser with Val and just a little bit more out of DX. These segments weren't bad, but nothing breakthrough for sure.
Yeah, agreed for me. Again, the DX stuff, I was having trouble hearing what's going on. I guess they're building it up for the fact that X-Pac and Triple H have a match against each other, so that seemed like the whole purpose of it.
All right, let's keep it going to our next match. Val Venis defeats Chainz by pinfall in 4 minutes and 35 seconds. Chainz got jobbed out of his entrance. I was glad to see that. And I hate to say it, but this match was kind of lackluster for me. There was nothing wrong with it outside of the obvious problems that Chainz brings. But, Val Venis looked perfectly fine in it. Great work as usual. But then Chainz was dog shit as usual. So commentary was clever, but the problem that I've got with this is that Val doesn't have an angle yet. And I was just being a nitpicking dickbag on that. Like, what's he doing? I know he's showing up and beating jobbers, which is good, but he's done it a few times now. And when it comes to storytelling, I think maybe we ought to just get the tip in a little bit on a story for Val. Ryan, what'd you think of this match?
You described it pretty well there. Chainz was the weak link here, as to be expected. Val did a serviceable job in the ring, but the moment Chainz did the exact same move 12 times in a row, the bounce off the rope, drop an elbow, I felt like I was caught in a video game with someone who found that unstoppable move that they just hammer a few times. Just Chainz is so bad, and I think this is really one of his biggest problems. Sometimes his wrestling looks okay for about 30 seconds, but then he gets winded. And Val Venis, he was fine. He had the stamina of a stallion in there. He kept on going. But I really can't wait until Chainz is gone. Isn't maybe next week?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
I thought this was it. I thought
we're right around in there.
I think this might be the end.
Okay. I know we're getting close.
Yeah. I think with Val Venis, he's not in an angle right now, but it seems like one of those, if it's not broke, don't fix it type things with him, because the fans want to see that creepy Titantron video with all the innuendos. They want to hear the music. They want to hear his promo before the match. He's doing all of his normal shit that's entertaining for them. But yeah, at some point, they're going to have to do something more with him. But for now, it's working with what they're doing. And the thing with Val Venis that gets overlooked a lot is that he's pretty good in the ring. It was what we're noticing as we go back and watch the beginning part of his run here. There are a lot of mid-card guys who are not as good in the ring as Val, such as Chainz. So it's nice to see a mid-card guy, even with a goofy gimmick, who can look pretty good in the ring.
Yeah, it just struck me like we have this thing with Mark Marrow and Double J in the previous match, and I was pretty underwhelmed by that. But then I got to thinking, like, maybe Val versus Mark Marrow. Val could cut a sleazy promo on Jackie, and Mark could be an insufferable jackass that he's good at being, and that could probably carry us for a couple months, I would think, without the heavy reliance on Sable. They can keep it kind of loose.
If I remember correctly, his first major storyline is Choppy Choppy, I think.
Probably, yeah. Well, and Sable, you're downplaying Sable, but Sable's a big moneymaker for the company, so yeah, they're going to keep her at the top.
Right. Well, I just mean, like, he could still keep his pervy thing up with Jackie, though. Like, it doesn't have to be Sable. We can just swap her out with Jackie and give him something to do. Let's see, what's up next? Kevin, oh my God, Kelly, was backstage with The Undertaker, and there were questions of trust there. The Undertaker was talking to Kevin as if Kevin were some kind of moron, which just really struck me. Like, he was really condescending to Kevin Kelly in this. Big words from a man that just changed out of his fucking sweatpants. But the bottom line there is the Taker can't trust Austin, but Austin can trust The Undertaker, because The Undertaker has been straightforward about everything. After that, we got another view of X-Pac and Triple H in the locker room talking about their upcoming match again. So, Joe, anything you wanted to add to this?
Not really. It's just they're driving home the conspiracy more and more. And it does seem to me like they're building a heel run for Undertaker, though. Like there are hints of that in here, which seems pretty good because it's a slow burn, slow build up to it, which is the right way to do it because you have a fucking show to do every single week. So it seems like they're doing a good job with that. So we're going to continue to see where it goes. Yeah,
I agree with that. Seeing the hints of that Taker turn, we're seeing a little bit of it in the last few weeks, which is cool to see. Other than that, I really don't have much more to add. Other than I'm still very happy that the Undertaker has hung up the sweatpants.
Well, hey, speaking of, let's go into our next match. Dustin Runnels defeats Mark Marrow with Jackie by pinfall in 4 minutes and 3 seconds. Dustin got the jobber treatment, which is really fitting because he looks like a jobber. He's dressed like a jobber. He's got no fucking prospects and no gold wig. I'm not sure what else to say about him. This is probably, at least I think, it's the lowest point in Dustin's trajectory in the WWF so far. This is damn near a tragedy, what's happening here. Double J and Tennessee Lee and Southern Justice came out. Double J joined commentary, and we got a lot of split screen with that. Eventually, Sable came out too, and that distraction was enough to give Dustin the upper hand for the pin and the win. Sable, she hadn't even made it down the ramp the whole way before the distraction happened, and then she just turned around and walked back out again. And that's it. Like, it really feels like we're doubling down on this whole zero heat thing. It brought up a question in my mind. What do Double J, Mark Marrow, Southern Justice, and Dustin Runnels all have in common? Nobody gives a fucking shit about any of them. And that's it. That's all I've got. Joe, at this point in the episode, I think I may have started channel hopping. What'd you think of this match?
Because there's too much wrestling. And Dustin Runnels is a jobber now. I have to say, though, I do like the new red and black look for Mark Marrow. I think that looks great with Jackie and her red bodysuit. Yeah, Double J joins commentary. You knew that wasn't going to be exciting. But obviously, with him there, he's going to be starting a feud with one of these two guys, Mark Marrow or Dustin Runnels or both. Who knows? It's going to have zero heat. We know that. But yeah, this is not looking good for Dustin Runnels. And even with Mark Marrow, like, really the key part of this is going to be Jackie and Sable. When we get there, that's what's going to be the moneymaker. So even with Mark Marrow, like, he's not really in any kind of angle or story that's any good right now.
Yeah, this is not going to end up working for anyone involved here. And sadly, Dustin Runnels, despite him looking solid in the ring, there's nothing to take away from him in his action in the ring, but he just looks terrible. He looks like just a generic wrestler. Like if you were playing a game and you just created and said like random, and this was what they would come up with. Some guy just dressed in a black t-shirt and black pants with slick back hair. They had to know this wasn't going to go anywhere, this character. Like, there couldn't be anyone involved that thought, oh, well, this is going to really take off with the fans. Generic Wrasslin Reynolds. It's sad for him. It's sad for Mark, but as you just stated, this is just a long build-up for pushing Sable again, and poor Dustin Runnels can't seem to get away from pushing Sable.
Yeah. One good thing is that he did not get the breast implants.
True. And he did win this match, so
yeah,
give him that. But let's not forget, maybe the reason he's not wearing anything, though, is he's still wrestling for free right now, isn't he?
Oh, that's right. I completely forgot about that.
Maybe that's the explanation.
They dropped that. You'd think that they would bring it up if that's the case.
I don't know.
Huh. Okay. This whole jobber Dustin phase, just every time I see him now, I think to myself, like, you motherfucker, you could have had breast implants and you could have had a gimmick for your entire life out of that, but no. All right. Let's see. Next up, more dropping knowledge with DX. There was no real content there other than China just telling them to shut up and wrestle. That was followed by Kevin Kelly backstage with Dustin Runnels, and Dustin made sure to thank his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for his victory.
Jesus fucking Christ. This stupid fucking character.
Which I am not going to touch, so rather than myself, Ryan, what'd you want to add here?
Jesus fucking Christ.
I thought he was going to thank Dakota, honestly.
I don't get it. That's it.
Okay. No. Valid. Totally valid. All right, let's get the hell away from that to our next match. Triple H defeats X-Pac by countout in 5 minutes and 12 seconds in a King of the Ring qualifier match. So this was the first thing in this episode that actually perked me up and got me interested for what was going to be on my screen. And I put that squarely on the familiarity between these guys. A match is always better when the competitors have chemistry with each other, and we got that here between the two of them. The way that this match started was great. And I like just the little things in it. Chyna chucking X-Pac back into the ring. And then again, she chucks Hunter back into the ring. I fucking loved that. But then I got a little confused when The Rock ended up on a microphone up in the stands, and I guess it was at that point that Owen Hart used that distraction to come in and attack X-Pac. We didn't see it. We got a replay of it well after the fact, but it was completely hidden from us whenever it happened. And it was because of that, it was like a default that Triple H was given the win via countout. X-Pac was injured there at the outside and insisted that Triple H got back in the ring and get the win. But with that, Triple H moves forward in the brackets, and Try will be taking on The Rock in the next round. So this is the kind of storytelling that I like with these tournaments. Now we've got just a little bit of an added angle that we can whip up out of nowhere, add a little spice to that next qualifier match that we're going to get out of these guys, give it a little extra level. But with that being said, this finish ruined this match for me. I'm glad that this is going places, and we're going to get there, I think, next week with Triple H versus The Rock. But it just really felt like the finish caused this buildup of energy and charisma between X-Pac and Hunter to just fizzle out, and it died there. Ryan, what'd you think of this match?
Yeah, I'm going to start off saying I agree with you that the ending kind of ruined things, but it started off really good. I really liked what I was seeing between X-Pac and Triple H, which isn't a huge surprise. As you stated, they know each other, they've trained together, they wrestle a lot, so that usually makes for a pretty good match. I thought it was cool to see X-Pac already has his own DX entrance. So it's a take off of the DX music, but it starts with that familiar X-Pac. The music has changed up a little bit. So that was cool. I was not happy to see Triple H when he came out. It looked like we were finally going to get a clean view of his water spray, but right before he did it, they started the jump cuts and we missed it again. So I guess the seizure-inducing cuts will continue. And this match, it was just really fun to watch. It was one of those matches that you don't take a ton of notes on because you're just watching it. Up until The Rock just shows up in the second level. Why is he even feuding with Triple H? Something happened last week? Triple H, did he interrupt a match of The Rock's?
Spend the Nation and DX.
Right, those two, but I didn't remember a specific feud between The Rock and Triple H, but that could lead to good stuff, but it really just put the brakes on this match and all the energy that was built up. Especially, we don't even see Owen attack X-Pac except minutes later in the replay, so I don't know why they wouldn't actually cut and show us that. That maybe would have made things a little bit more exciting, but yeah, unfortunately, this ending really derailed what was a very good and entertaining match before that.
So we did see Owen attacking X-Pac. It was just really bad camera work because the hard camera zoomed out once The Rock started talking. And you could see it at the very bottom. Owen jumped out of the crowd and started beating on X-Pac. But it was like, okay, I can't really see what's going on until they're going to show this replay. So it was just bad camera work. But I didn't dislike the ending of this as much as you guys. I thought this was pretty well put together just because, okay, X-Pac and Triple H are having this match. How are we going to book the finish? Like, we can't just have someone win this match, right? Because it's two guys that are in the same stable. So they came up with this whole Rock up in the crowd thing and Owen attacking, which makes sense because, like we mentioned, the Nation and DX are feuding right now. But man, is it great to see X-Pac back here and back in the ring.
And off the mic.
Yeah, he's the measuring stick. I know Conrad always talks about how X-Pac was like the guy that they would send in with new guys, and X-Pac would go to the back and just be like, he sucks, or he's got talent, let's give him some more chances. Like, he was like the measuring stick for a lot of new wrestlers that would come in. So he looks great. Things start off in the match surprisingly fast. There was no shenanigans, which was expected, I think, to be some shenanigans at the beginning, but they didn't do that. They just went straight into it real fast, and then the shenanigans happened at the end with the Nation. So I thought it was pretty good. Chyna looked great too. She looks like she's fresh off another cycle of gas and always applies the perfect amount of oil to her upper body, unlike Ahmed Johnson.
There's a name we haven't heard in a while.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much The finish, as it was, the part of it is the bad camera work, like you said, Joe. But it was almost like somebody just pumped the brakes on all of it. Whenever the camera zoomed out and you started hearing Rocky on the mic and Triple H got all confused and he's looking around to see where it's coming from. And like, I don't know, everything was just firing on all cylinders. And then you hear the microphone and it's like just screeching brakes.
Yeah. And to me, The Rock getting on the mic and being not even in the ring, but up in the second tier is what put the brakes on it. Because if it would have just been a quick run-in to finish the match, like Owen came in quickly as X-Pac was on the outside and we watched it all, I felt like it wouldn't have killed the momentum of the match, like stopping it all so we could hear The Rock talk the way that did. I just felt it made it too slow.
Or if they pointed out the fact that The Rock was up in the crowd, like if commentary would have said, what's he doing up there? You know, like to give us that hint that something's going to happen here.
All right. Joe, I thought of you whenever this next segment started. Al Snow
bet you did,
and Head came out wearing the Avatar gear. Al and the King got into a conversation there in the ring. Jerry the King Lawler got up there with microphones to meet him. Al decided to air his grievances. That ended with an attack on the King. Referee Jack Doan got the snowplow. It's a simple move. I think it's a take on like what the Godfather does. The
Hoe Train?
No, not the Hoe Train. The pimp drop. It's like a modified fisherman's carry suplex or some shit like that. But he calls it the snowplow, and I've always loved that. The King and a variety of security guys got hit with Head there in the ring, and Al finally escaped through the crowd. I was a little underwhelmed by that. That's what made me think of you, Joe. We got another swerve from DX invading the live wire set. Jesus, to soak Michael Cole with super soakers. And there was another non-charismatic talent there to read ad copy. It was not enjoyable, just like the last time. The guy was terrible.
He read better than Sable, though.
That's true. That is true. After that, Michael Cole was with Stone Cold Steve Austin backstage asking the same questions that Kevin Kelly had asked The Undertaker earlier with much the same results. Joe, I wanted to go to you first. You're not a fan of this version of Al Snow, so what did you think of Al and the rest of this segment?
As expected, I hated it. Even when JR said the King got head twice, I hated that too. I'm not an Al Snow Head fan. I did like that the two pencil-necked geeks got the super soaker here, Michael Cole and this camera nerd, as they called him, I think. Austin interview with Michael Cole. What a stupid fucking question. Can Austin trust The Undertaker? Like, Austin has built his character on not trusting anyone. What a stupid question from Michael Cole.
Al Snow came out here, and guys, I also have a confession to make. I hate Head as well. Joe. I'm in your camp too.
I thought you were gonna say you loved Avatar.
Well, and I say that with a sad heart because I do like Al Snow. Right. I like his crazy gimmick. I just always wish they could cut the head part out of it because it just seemed unnecessary to me. I don't know. But one thing I didn't hate, that was Al Snow, and this kind of lends into the fact that I like Al Snow. I loved when he said he wanted to make a citizen's arrest on Vince because he murdered his career with that Aldo Montoya lookalike gimmick in Avatar. That was fucking perfect. So that's why I love Al Snow, not the head. The rest of that, I could have done without it.
I love it. I can't say it any differently. I
guess we can't even really call you an 18%er on this one either. It was very popular.
Yeah.
So let me ask you guys this. This is something that I thought of last week.
We'll definitely be calling him an 18%er on this next part, but yeah.
You know me too well. So do you guys prefer Al Snow with Pepper the dog?
Oh, jeez.
Because it's the same thing. He's talking to the dog instead of talking to the head.
To me, he doesn't need another prop in there with him. He just needs to be his crazy self.
Yeah.
And I think that's enough. You don't need to acknowledge Pepper or the head or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just curious. We'll have fun with Pepper.
Even if it isn't a bowl of chili.
I can't wait for the big boss man to come in, man. That's going to be
That
great.
has to happen really soon, right?
He comes in with the corporation as a stable, an official stable, because he's like the hired security contractor or whatever.
Well, he's there at WrestleMania 15 because that was the hanging. Remember when they hanged him from the steel cage or Hell in a Cell or whatever? So yeah, not too far away.
That's the most forgettable Hell in the Cell.
Yeah, right.
All right, let's go to our next match. The Nation, Owen Hart and Mark Henry defeats Dan Severn and Ken Shamrock by disqualification in 4 minutes and 38 seconds.
Your highlight.
So this is where I had it noted about Commissioner Slaughter coming out to kick out the Nation. And I like that we are keeping people out, because I like that we don't have like this swarm of people around every match, but at the same time, like it's become Slaughter's new personal gimmick to come out and send these people back because he doesn't have anything else going for him. It's just this stupid repetitive thing that they're doing. Like, why doesn't everybody just catch on to the fact that it's a fucking rule and stop trying so that we don't have to see Slaughter every goddamn time?
But then they never actually get stopped, so...
Right. That was just my little gripe about Slaughter. But we got some video from the UFC at the start of this of one of the last times Shamrock and Severn met in the Octagon. So that was neat to have there. Just showing that the whole rivalry talk doesn't necessarily have to be bullshit. It can mean something. Severn came out. I still love Severn's entrance. I love the look. I love the music. It all works as far as I'm concerned. Shamrock hit the ground running in this. He looked great in there with Owen. Mark Henry looked pretty good too. Shamrock did a great job of putting over the power of the world's strongest man through some of the moves they were doing. I did laugh though when Severn came in and couldn't fully rotate Mark Henry through a belly-to-belly suplex. That was funny. And I also enjoyed Owen Hart in there against Dan Severn. They really exemplified that catch as catch can style.
We haven't heard that in a while.
I was waiting for it with this because him and Owen and Dan Severn were trading holds and riding and all kinds of shit there in the middle of the ring.
Catching.
Yeah. Things were cruising along until Owen Hart put the sharpshooter on Ken Shamrock. That caused DX to run out and interrupt the match. Vader's big ass wandered in at one point. Looked like he was confused and forgot why he came out, though. He just wandered for a minute on the ramp. And that's where this more or less ended. So, once again, I was enjoying a match until the finish. And once it went off the rails, it really went off the rails. And I had another just big sense of deja vu with Vader. I feel like we've seen that a couple times where he just like starts to run out and forgets what he's doing and just wanders for a minute before focusing on somebody. But anyway, Joe, what did you think of this match?
I'm really trying to like Dan Severn. I really mean that. And I thought, okay, let's see what happens. This is the first time he's been in a tag team with Ken Shamrock, right? So
yeah. Let's
see how it goes. And I think him teaming up with Shamrock actually makes me dislike him even more because I really like Ken Shamrock as a WWF superstar. And I like his style. I like his gimmick.
Crowd loves him.
Yes, the crowd loves him. And so seeing him there teaming up with Ken, I think makes him look worse because he has just no personality or connection other than his work and his looking like a serial killer. But outside of that, I can't really connect with Dan Severn, but I'm not going to give up on it just yet. So
don't worry, the WWF will do that for you.
Yes, correct. But DX interrupting here, I guess it makes sense because Mark Henry and Owen Hart are in there, so they're feuding with DX, but now Vader? What? Why? I don't get that. There's too many guys involved who are not DX or Nation, so that worries me. Guys, I feel like we're headed down like a fucking 8-man tag match or some bullshit like that. So, yeah, hopefully that doesn't happen with these guys, but I guess, I don't know. We're doomed.
I thought this was Dan Severn's worst match we've seen him in. He got in there with Henry, and yeah, that slam that you stated, Bartlett, where he couldn't quite rotate him. He also tried some other, I don't know what it was like a belly to belly or something. That didn't come off cleanly. And then he started in the corner to punch Henry, and to me, that has been his like weak spot since he got here. Normal like strike moves and stuff just look very bad. Like he pulls his punches, and he's clearly pulling his punches. So I thought Dan Severn sucked in this match, if I'm being completely honest. But Shamrock, great to see him. Owen Hart looked good when he was in there. But then, like earlier, this match went completely off the rails as DX came in, and then to put the cherry on the top, Vader came wandering out, just kind of looking aimlessly around like, what am I supposed to do, guys? He then finally attacks Mark. But yeah, this was another ending that kind of ruined the match. But I'm not up on Dan Severn. They need to do something with him to either give him some more charisma or get him in the ring with someone that could actually showcase his skills.
Or show him the door.
Yeah, which I think is what's going to happen.
Yeah. I look back on it, and I like I said, I love his look. I love the music. I love his skills, the way that he wrestles. I just wish they would have done like almost like a Goldberg thing with him. Like maybe let him come in and do 30-second squashes.
Do you think it's a classic case of and then the bell rang type of thing, like with Psycho Sid and some other guys?
No,
Bartlett seems to like his ring work.
Yeah, I like the technicality of it. He does a lot of holds and suplexes, and
I say this as someone who did really enjoy him in UFC. I just don't think he was able to transfer to the professional wrestling world very well.
No, that's completely valid. And let's all just be real here. There's a reason why he doesn't last. It's not like I'm blind to what's going on here. It's just I like him, you know. There's no accounting for taste. Yeah.
Yeah.
Showing your colors, you could veer away from that too much tonight.
All right. Let's go into our next match. Kane and Mankind win a tag team Royal Rumble in 8 minutes and 24 seconds to win the #1 contender spot for the tag team titles. So the participants in this, no particular order. The other tag teams are Bradshaw and Taka Michinoku, Farouk and Steve Blackman, Golga and the fucking Kurgan, Scorpio and Terry Funk, DOA, the Headbangers, LOD 2000, and the New Midnight Express, Bodacious Bart and Bombastic Bob.
I thought for sure those fuckers were gone.
So did I. And Too Much, which is Too Sexy, Brian Christopher, and Scott Taylor.
What a debut.
Yeah, right. Speaking of, there was some Jerry's Kid talk mixed into commentary here, so didn't care for that. And just in case anybody else was confused, commentary does clarify that Kane and Mankind will also still be taking on The Undertaker and Stone Cold Steve Austin. This didn't get like preempted by this or anything. That's actually going to be the next and final match on the card, so just in case you were wondering. And that's all I've got about the match. The big takeaway that I got from this is that the tag team division is just as bad as it's always been. Also, why weren't Southern Justice in this? It's not that I wanted to see them, but are they ever going to do anything? I don't know. Ryan, I know you had to have loved this.
Yes. I already hate Royal Rumble matches. Add in the fact that it's a bunch of these absolutely worthless fucking tag teams that we have right now. LOD, New Midnight Express, which I said I thought for sure was fucking dead. But no, they're still here. Kurgan coming out. Was he even with the Oddities the last time we saw the Oddities?
No,
it was that big, tall freak that they just went unnamed.
Bill Smith or something.
Yeah.
But we did get the debut of Too Much, a.k.a. Too Cool. He's still Scott Taylor, though, not Scotty Too Hottie, so that was sad. What about Taka and the Big Tex and Bradshaw? They're still together. And why would they be in a #1 contendership match?
Yeah.
Terry Funk and Scorpio, I thought that jobber team was broken up. It was good to see they gave Scorpio a fully functioning pair of pants this week, though, so that was good for him. But the best thing of the match is the fact that Mankind and Kane came out the winners. The rest of it, completely forgettable, but I guess it's cool that they are the number one contenders because out of everyone that got listed here, they're the only pairing that I'd like to see wrestle again.
Yeah.
The fact that you said Terry Funk and Jobber in the same sentence just shows what this whole thing is. This is exposing how terrible the tag team division is, and you guys mentioned it already, all these teams like the Midnight Express. Again, I'm like, what? No mention of NWA, though, anymore.
No.
But
Yeah.
last appearance for Sonny, which is just sad. I think that deserves the proper goodbye.
Goodbye.
Sad.
Very sad. Very sad.
What a weak ass debut for Too Much too. Man, that sucks for them. But the other thing too is, first off, we got Mankind we got shirt and tie Mankind, which was
corporate
interesting.
Mankind.
Yeah. Kane and Mankind come out here and insert themselves into this Royal Rumble, but they didn't exactly clean house.
No.
Kane, to me, is no longer an unbeatable monster. He's lost to The Undertaker a bunch of times.
Yeah.
He's going 10 to 15 minutes with Vader. He's in this Royal Rumble not cleaning house. It doesn't hurt his legacy at all, but I just find it very interesting to see these early days of Kane where he's just not really an unbeatable monster.
Well,
Yeah.
there's a reason that back in the day, we used to refer to him as the big red jobber because he becomes that for a little while.
I think we gave him the official title of the biggest jobber in history whenever he held the title for less than 24 hours, I think.
We're not far from that.
Isn't that what it was? He won the title on the pay-per-view and then lost it
loses
the next
it
night on Raw.
Yep.
The biggest jobber ever. Yeah, good call on all of that, especially with Kane. He's just, I don't know, it's almost like his reason for being has fizzled out. Like there's no longer the shock factor, the story of the family going on.
This was a perfect opportunity to have him come in there and just toss all of these jobbers out of the ring, like at once, and they didn't do it.
And the right way to do it would have been for Kane and Mankind to get introduced last, not first.
Yeah,
come in
right.
last and then just clean house and win. But for some stupid reason, that isn't what they did.
Well, Kane and Mankind stayed out after that to cut some promos with Paul Bearer while waiting for Austin and The Undertaker. Paul kept asking if Taker and Austin were going to accept the challenge, which I'm pretty sure they did earlier in the evening. Like, even JR said he knows they accepted already because, like, the cage is there. It's already set up.
Well, it was
it's already
there
hanging
from the beginning.
Yeah, almost like it was pre-planned.
Yeah, almost.
So that was where we were at until finally the glass broke and we went into our final match of the night. Steve Austin and The Undertaker versus Kane and Mankind with Paul Bearer in a Hell in a Cell tag team match. It doesn't actually officially ever start, but it does officially end. So I don't really have a match time on this. I tried timing it, but it just didn't work out. The Undertaker didn't come out despite being announced twice. We never did get an opening bell for the match to give us an official start signal. Things got jump-started outside of the cage. Paul Bearer locked himself in the cage in order to stay away from the carnage out there, and The Undertaker almost immediately came up through the mat to attack Paul Bearer. There has to be some kind of structural thing with the ring because The Undertaker only ever comes out of that one spot. Did you guys notice that? Like, whenever he came out to go after Diesel that one time, and I forget who, he's done it a couple times, but it's always that same spot, that same corner of the ring.
I feel like there is probably only certain spots in the ring where there isn't like cross beams and different structural things.
Yeah.
So it probably is a limited spot where he could come out. But I would imagine all four corners have that same spot, though.
Yeah, you would think. For our listeners out there, it's top right corner from the hard camera. He's always coming out.
If I remember properly, someone collapsed through the ring, though, in the bottom left corner before.
You're thinking of Bam Bam Bigelow and Taz. in ECW.
Oh, no. There's a Big Show moment where he gets put through the ring in the WWF. And I'm pretty sure it was the bottom left. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Okay. Well, I look forward to seeing that because I don't remember that with Lesnar.
Looking forward to Lesnar in general. That's going to be cool.
Yeah, that was about the time when I started to drift away from watching, so that's going to be a good refresher for me. Here in the match, Kane was trying to get in the cell to rescue Paul while Austin and Mankind went at it outside. Paul Bearer got some color here. We got a gloriously bloody view of him looking like hell.
What a beautiful fucking mug on that guy.
They did such a good job of making him look like he had the absolute fucking shit beat out of him.
Like a stuck pig.
That was great. Austin and Mankind, they got pretty rough with some steel chairs out there at the outside. That was pretty good. And Austin did eventually climb to the top of the cage to go after Kane. JR absolutely lost his shit over that. At one point, I was worried about JR's voice box with how hard he was going at it. And things faded to black, but we got some extra attitude here tonight. And thank goodness we did, because this is the part that gave us the clear indication of what was going on after all of this shit going on everywhere. The cage got opened. Taker went outside after Kane. Austin and Mankind ended up inside the cage. That's where Austin got the stunner and the pinfall on Mankind. The finish happened pretty early in that extra attitude, and we got about another half hour, 45 minutes worth of Austin working the corners after that before we faded to black. I don't know what to say about this other than this match was the best part of the evening. It's not even really a match, though. It's just some more storytelling. But I did not like the lead up to it at all. All of the talk about conspiracy, like that stuff really fell flat with me with how hard they were trying to hammer it home. It just didn't work. The action here looked great. I loved Austin and Mankind going at it. It's always great seeing Paul Bearer get color. But the match was just this, I don't even know what to call it. Like, I want to call it a schmoz, but it wasn't. It was just this haphazard, jangly, uncoordinated thing. And again, the action was good. I liked watching it, but I don't know. Joe, what'd you think of the final match here and the way that Raw ended tonight?
I'll start by saying that I was just very down on this episode to begin with up until this point. So I was worried about where they were going with this. We just came off this tag team Royal Rumble that was total trash. Where are they going with this was what I was worried about, because week after week, we've had Mr. McMahon and Steve Austin. Steve Austin has been carrying this show for the last, 6, 7, 8 weeks now.
Yeah.
So I was just a little bit worried, but for me, I thought that this went pretty well, especially with the fact that, again, they had the Hell in a Cell featured on a Monday Night Raw. So I thought that was a nice touch there. And the one thing that I think they could do a little bit better, what this is they're treating the King of the Ring like a road to SummerSlam, because it seems like the main story here is getting Steve Austin and the Undertaker against each other. Yeah. And they're using the King of the Ring as a build up to it. So you're getting Austin and Kane at King of the Ring and Undertaker and Mankind at King of the Ring. It's going to be epic, legendary, which we don't know that at this point.
They don't know that either. The thing everyone's going to remember is the non-title match.
Right. And it's a little bit weak because they're building up to Austin and Undertaker, but we have this other stuff we have to get through. So it's just a little, I don't know. There's not enough Mr. McMahon either for my liking. I think that there needs to be more of him involved here. But I thought the finish was pretty good. It gave the live crowd some excitement with Steve Austin and Kane going up to the top of the cell and fighting. And I thought it was a pretty hot finish, even though the build up to it wasn't the best. You had Undertaker coming out of the ring, and you had the guys on the top of the cell. That added a lot of excitement. And Paul Bearer, let's call it what it is. Paul Bearer is a morbidly obese man. Like, he is not an athlete by any means, but holy shit did he sell so well here for not being a wrestler. He's in terrible shape. I mean, he's another guy that got sent to fat camp a couple times. They really tried to get him healthy and thin, but it just never happened. But He just sells so well here. And just between Paul Bearer, the guys on top of the cell, and Undertaker coming out from under the ring, that was a lot of excitement there at the end of this episode.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And Paul Bearer has to be the most beautiful, morbidly obese man ever in existence. Because, yeah, the way he was acting in this when Undertaker was grating his face against the cage like a cheese grater, he's just bleeding everywhere. He looked fucking great. I like the way things started off, too. I thought Mankind giving his, the stories they'll tell, his own rendition of that, that whole rhyme worked really good. He delivered it well, and I thought it was pretty great. The match never really did get started, but to tip my hand a bit, this was by far the highlight, though. We had giant stars out here beating the shit out of each other. Paul Bearer getting color in the ring as The Undertaker gets his hands on him. And normal Raw ended with Kane and Stone Cold up on the top of the cage, which is a great ending. That's a good way to end a show, give that little bit of a taint tickle of what could happen in the Hell in the Cell. But the extra attitude, for the first time ever, actually did add something. Most of the time, the extra attitude is just like Austin continuing to celebrate in the corners, or where this was actually like, oh, okay, there was a match. Undertaker beat Mankind. That's good. But something you alluded to with the fact that at King of the Ring, we have the Hell in the Cell with Undertaker and Mankind, and then Kane and Stone Cold, is that even the way this match ended seemed like it's highlighting the Hell in the Cell more than anything, which isn't the title match. So even before we know how things are going to end with Mankind and the Undertaker, and that becoming one of the most iconic matches ever, it seems like they're already propping that up as the main event, even though it's not. So I thought that was a little bit weird. But to me, all of this worked pretty well and was the best part of the night.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're all going to agree on that one, because Joe, like you said, I was pretty down on this episode in general going into this, but this was a great way to end it. And it got me thinking, between last week and now this week, what's the old saying? How can I miss you if you don't go away? And I think that's what we're doing with the whole McMahon Austin thing here. Last week, somebody else did all of the talking for McMahon. This week, Sable did a good chunk of the talking for McMahon. McMahon hasn't been on our screens as much. It feels like they're trying to dial him back so that they're not just constantly wearing him out on our screens. But then the drawback to that is that the overall quality of the show goes down.
He's your heavy hitter.
Yeah, it's exposing the product here, generally speaking. If you take McMahon out of the equation and you dial back Steve Austin as much as you can, you get episodes like this. And they are subpar compared to the, what did we say, like six straight weeks of amazing episodes, because they were solely focused on McMahon and Austin. They've done a 180 on us with that for the past 2 weeks, and just, like I said, slowly dialing it back, and the episode has suffered for it.
But as we've learned in the past, we don't have to have McMahon and Stone Cold to make a winning episode. The Kane and Undertaker stories carried episodes a few months ago before we were ever getting into the McMahon-Austin stuff. So they can do it, but up until the very end, it was falling flat.
Yeah. Well, and I think that just helps my point out, though. The Kane, like we said a few minutes ago, the Kane and Undertaker story is more or less done. It's still an ongoing thing between the two of them, and they're going to keep meeting up in matches, but like the high drama and Kane being a monster and smearing people and what really made that story one of the best stories ever told in a wrestling ring, the main part of that is done. So they don't have anything to fall back on.
But you have Undertaker and Mankind, who already had a great feud, but now we have a new feud. They didn't really, up until the end, having this Hell in the Cell, they ignored that completely. The Undertaker is still after Austin, after McMahon, even though he has a upcoming match with a highly regarded adversary in Mankind, but he doesn't even really acknowledge him.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm just saying that it's whatever they have to fall back on, they're not effectively using it to pad the rest of the episode.
And I agree with you. It's just, it seems like they have a lot of pieces to work with. They just didn't utilize them.
Yeah. Too many eggs in the McMahon-Austin basket, I think. But all right. Like I said, we faded to black. So let's take it on over to highlights and lowlights. Joe, why don't you take that first?
I think for me, my highlight is the beginning of the episode and the end of the episode. So what they've done over the last few weeks now is they've gotten away from having that lead story at the beginning of the show and giving us little bits and pieces throughout the night of that lead story. They start out with it at the beginning for the first 20 minutes, and then they end with it, and there's nothing in between. Everything in between is my low light because it was all just average or below average matches and segments, in my opinion. It's unfortunate because you have things like DX, you have things like Sable, you have things like The Nation, The Rock, things that are over with the crowds that they're not really like taking much advantage of right now. Hopefully they'll start doing that eventually. Like we just said, maybe getting Mr. McMahon involved a little bit more coming up here.
So my highlight, as I said a few times, is this final segment. To me, that was a no-brainer here. They really brought out their biggest stars. The low light, though, for me, had to be the tag team battle royale. That was just a complete shit in my face moment, and I hated every fucking minute of that.
Well, for my low lights, there were a lot to choose from that I considered here.
Surely.
I thought that this was a really weak episode, comparatively speaking. It's 10 times better than anything we got for the first 3 years of Raw. But
what about that clip show?
Keeping things in perspective, this was definitely weaker than last week's show. But the low light that I ended up settling on was just the number of bad finishes that kind of ended up ruining what would have been great matches for me. If I could have kept on enjoying those two matches, the X-Pac Triple H match and then the tag team match, I could have maybe had a brighter view of this episode, but even those got ruined, which leaves me with my highlights. Again, really not a whole bunch to choose from here, but I ended up going with specifically the visuals of Paul Bearer, all bloody and mangled in his work and the way that he was selling it. Paul Bearer was the absolute highlight of this entire episode for me because he rocked the shit out of that. So, Joseph, do you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around June 15th, 1998 for us?
Yeah, just a couple of good bits of news here. It appears as though, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but it appears as though all NWA references have been dropped from the show.
Beautiful.
Nice.
That makes it official.
No mention of it tonight with Dan Severn. There hasn't been with Dan Severn for the past couple weeks. And then no mention of it with the new Midnight Express either. So Dave Meltzer's pretty confident that they have totally dropped the whole NWA gimmick in the WWF. So that's a good piece of news there.
Didn't you say a few weeks ago that Cornette had to take a break for a little while as well?
He did, but then he was back right away. So I don't know if that was just like a couple weeks or what that was. But
I just wondered if they doubled it with that. Like, well, let's just kill off the NWA.
That, and they may have done it at the same time when they decided to go a different direction with Dan Severn. Maybe that was part of it. But the other piece of good news here this week is that Jeff and Matt Hardy have signed contracts with the WWF. They are no longer on a jobber deal, so
Gary Sabaw is no longer taking a finder's fee.
Yes, Gary Sabaw is out of the picture, so hopefully we will see Jeff and Matt on our screen on a regular basis soon. And that is all.
All right. I can't get over the fact that the name Gary Sabaw has stuck with us through all of these years.
Well, his stories were pretty memorable.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I believe right around this time where they get signed, if I remember correctly, that is when he loses his job. Like, I think he was still actually signed on as a jobber, but when they found out that he's been exploiting the Hardy Boys, that's when they finally give him the kick out the door.
Yeah, not a moment too soon. All right, we are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and tell all of your friends to tune in to the most appalling Monday Night Raw review podcast on the airwaves. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on June 22nd, 1998, with matches featuring X-Pac, Jose Estrada, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.